workers. My name is Anna Fenley, and I work in the USW's Legislative and Policy Office in Washington, D.C. I'm joined on the stage by brothers and sisters from the U.S. labor movement who represent federal employees and those who rely on federal funding. As we recommit ourselves to being all in on solidarity this week, we're inviting each of these folks to share some of the unprecedented challenges they're facing and talk about what we as fellow union members can do to help. The federal workforce is highly unionized and already face more than enough restrictions. They are unable to negotiate over wages, benefits, or job classifications, and they're barred from striking. Yet, these workers who are fighting every day for the same things that we fight for. Right. A voice on the job, dignity, respect in the workplace are now facing new threats to their collective power. Since taking office, the Trump administration deputized Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency to carry out much of Project 2025's plans to terrorize the federal workforce and rapidly shrink the federal government by firing workers and canceling collective bargaining agreements. I want to highlight a few of the high-level attacks on workers. The administration has engaged in blanket firings, which have impacted both probationary and long-serving employees. Oftentimes, these firings were undertaken without regard for the work that individuals do and needed to be rescinded to restore basic essential services like guarding our nuclear arsenal, running a veterans suicide prevention hotline, and approving medical devices. Nevertheless, the Department of Health and Human Services is cutting 10,000 workers, including the vast majority of workers who do occupational safety and health research and testing at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH. The Department of Veterans Affairs plans to fire 80,000 people who assist those who have served our country. And the Department of Education is firing half of its workers, leaving its mission of supporting our schools in jeopardy. With the current announcements, experts guess that 300,000 federal workers will leave their jobs in public service, creating a hole in knowledge and service that will take years or decades to replace. The federal government has also canceled or unilaterally changed contracts funding nonprofits, companies, universities, and more. This impacts union workers who conduct vital research, including some of our own USW siblings who do biomedical research that safeguards public health and makes needed advancements in fighting Alzheimer's to cancer to other diseases. And you heard this morning from Liz Shuler. Most egregiously, President Trump attempted to unilaterally eliminate collective bargaining for nearly a million federal workers still on the job, depriving them of their voice that all workers need. On March 27th, he signed an executive order rescinding collective bargaining agreements at over 30 federal agencies, claiming that those workers should not have collective bargaining rights because their jobs or agencies relate to national security. This unprecedented overreach has implications that reverberate beyond the federal workforce, signaling that the administration is gearing up for a wider attack on collective bargaining. Workers across the country are under assault, either because they are a federal worker or because they rely on services and protections from the federal government. So please join me today in welcoming our panelists. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the impact of the Trump administration's cuts and the Department of Government Efficiency on their lives and their members. First, I'd like to turn to Steve Gutierrez. Steve is a business representative for the Land Management Division of the National Federation of Federal Employees.
Thank you for having me today. I work and represent federal workers across this country. but specifically land management personnel, the National Park Service, the Forest Service, and Bureau of Land Management. Myself, I was a wildland firefighter for 15 years. I worked on hotshot crews, and I worked on an engine, driving a fire engine around. It was a great job, you know, and now I work and represent these folks. They are taking care of the public day in and day out, and I felt that this is a desperate need for me to take care of our public sector employees and federal workers specifically. And the attacks on these folks is just egregious. I mean, we had folks responding to these wildfires in LA recently, and they literally received an email as they were fighting this fire saying, hey, you're going to be terminated. Hey, your collective bargaining rights are now removed. You have no more union. We've been able to try to stave off a lot of this, but it's not over yet. This battle is going to keep continuing, and we are looking for as much support as possible from all of you here in this hallway.
Shanice? Yeah, don't use the mic.
Next, I'd like to ask Shanice Mundell to speak. She is a former health and insurance specialist for the Office of Personnel Management and a member of the American Federation of Government Employees, AFG, Local 32.
Hello. Thank you for having me. As Anna said, I was employed with the Office of Personnel Management. I was responsible for negotiating the benefits for the postal, for insurance carriers for the postal employees, so the people that deliver your mail every day. On February 13th, I was fired via a video email. I was told that basically my job was no longer necessary for the federal government, and I had 30 minutes to pack up my things basically, and I would be denied access to the system. I am a single mom. I'm a veteran. I served my country. I enjoyed doing my job. I went to work every day with the expectations of just serving the public. And to be fired the way that I was fired, if it was a performance issue, I would be okay with that, but it wasn't. It was just basically the administration felt that probationary employees were the low-hanging fruit and we were fired first. I've had to apply for unemployment. I've had to apply for SNAP benefits, Medicaid, because my insurance was terminated 30 days after I was fired. I'm just here to raise awareness that if this could happen to me, it can happen to you. And I think we should all band together, and regardless of what your political views are, right is right, wrong is wrong, and this is not right. So we need to stand together and fight, because if it can come from me, it can come for all of us.
Thank you so much, Shanice. Oh, this works now.
Great.
Next, we have Cameron Halaker. Cameron is a former USAID emergency manager and member of AFG Local 1534.
That's right, 1534, shout them out, even if they're not here today. But thank you so much for having us. It really means so much to be able to speak to all of my brothers and sisters here today. My name is Cameron Halaker. I'm a former emergency manager with the United States Agency for International Development. And I'd just like to share a few facts real quick, right? Because we are watching, one of the greatest destructions of U.S. foreign policy in anybody's lifetime. All of our materials that we, share abroad are American-made and produced. USAID bought about $2 billion of American agricultural goods, right? That's American farmers in Kansas and across, the entire grain belt that no longer are able to kind of, sell their goods. Oklahoma is actually one of the largest vaccine producers within the United States. We no longer buy from them. Those are American jobs and American, goods that have been taken away as a result of the destruction of USAID. We help other countries because they then buy things from us. One of my favorite facts, South Korea was once poorer than North Korea, right? After the Korean War, North Korea actually produced more goods. But America took a long-term investment strategy on South Korea. We developed them. USAID helped build South Korea up, and now they're one of our largest trading partners. We were about to do the same thing with Kenya. Kenya was about to become a net exporter in a very dangerous part of the world so that our men and women did not have to go and stay in those really dangerous areas. The destruction of USAID has prevented that. American foreign policy is currently on fire, and it is damaging all of us. Personally, you know, the one silver lining, I'm actually expecting my first child in June. We're really excited about this. Thank you. Yeah, this is excellent, right? You know, this is a phenomenal time. The bad side, my wife works for HHS. She works in NIOSH, in that occupational safety and health office. 90% of her office has been cut. They have cut mine safety offices from Spokane, Washington, all the way over to Pittsburgh on the East Coast. They have completely thrown out worker protections, the basic rights that keep all of us safe on the job. And you know what, I'll be honest, right? I've had a lot of really hard conversations with my wife, asking what's gonna happen if she gets fired. How the heck are we gonna pay for this child if neither of us have any income? And that's terrifying. That is not how we wanna be spending our nights. But that is the reality of our situation, because it's not just the federal government that is under attack, it is all of our unions. If they can come for us and dismantle us, they will come for you next, because they only care about power and money, and until they get that, they will destroy everything in their wake. So thank you so much for having us here. In solidarity, my brothers and sisters, I am thrilled to be able to fight back with all of you.
Thank you, Cameron. We also have Sue Parton with us. Sue is the president of the Federation of Indian Service Employees and a member of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT Local 4524. Sue.
Hande on de Embo. Yes, I know that there was an official notification from the White House that English is the official language of our country now. However, I chose to greet you in my tribal language to show you a sign of respect. I am the president of the Federation of Indian Service Employees Union and a proud Kiowa woman. Our local represents more than 5,000 federal workers in the Department of Interior whose job it is to provide services to the Native American communities in this country, specifically in the Bureau of Indian Education, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bureau of Trust Fund Administration, and the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs. Our members are located in 26 states. Our federal work is to uphold the U.S. obligations required by the more than 400 treaties that were agreed upon with the indigenous people of America. Some of them were settled more than 200 years ago. These are treaties that our people died for. They gave up their land for peace and protection, and there is no expiration of the federal obligations to our people. My members work every day to ensure that this sacred obligation is kept. For background, about 80% of our membership are Native Americans. Many were hired using Indian preference, which requires a 2-year probationary period. On February 14th, we started learning that the BIA and BIE were terminating probationary workers, at least 100 staff. We received phone calls from stewards at the Haskell Indian Nation University in Kansas and the Southwest Indian Polytechnic Institute in New Mexico. Specifically, they were hit hard and told to leave within a 2-hour time frame. Many of them were teachers and professors who were in the middle of a semester, in the middle of teaching a class. They were given 2 hours to clean out their offices and leave the campus. 25% of the Haskell staff were terminated and 20% of the SIPI staff. Many of them, again, were instructors. These 2 tribal colleges are held in sacred trust by the Indian nations, and they are being decimated. With the help of AFT and President Randy Weingarten, we have fought back and strengthened our coalitions with the tribal communities through union litigation from all federal unions. These members have been put back to work, but they are scared and understand that more reductions in forces are coming, and they will be first in line to get cut again. So these probationary workers, even though they're hired back, they are still lower on the seniority scale. Every possible law and regulation that we as federal employees have depended on over the history of our union has been violated. The institution set up to help federal workers on the off chance that they are terminated or subjected to a reduction in force are not staffed and are being shut down. The Merit System Protection Act, the Office of the Special Counsel, and the Federal Labor Relations Authority, just to name a few. So I really appreciate the United Steelworkers taking the time to discuss our challenges, and I look forward to hearing more from my siblings in labor. Aho. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. Finally on our panel, we have Tyler Bickford, who is a steelworker, unit chair of USW Local 1088-4, representing steelworker members at the University of Pittsburgh who are not federal employees, but who are also very impacted by these cuts. So Tyler, please.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, brothers, sisters, siblings. I'm a proud member of Local 1088 and District 10. Is District 10 here? Yeah? So I'm one of 12,000 steelworkers at the University of Pittsburgh. Pitt is a major federal contractor. We get about $1 billion a year in contracts from the federal government, from different agencies, and the Trump administration has proposed to cut off the top of that $200 million. That cut is currently on hold in the courts, but we have no idea how it's going to play out. The administration is also coming in with a chainsaw and cutting individual contracts on the basis that they are related somehow to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They have a list of keywords that they've decided mean that some grant or contract is now illegal. That list of terms includes the term women, women's health and maternal health research has already been cut on the grounds that it's illegal DEI. It includes phrases like trans, which captures transgenic mice, which means that mice who have been bred to be subjects for particular types of biomedical studies and have nothing to do with their insane attack on trans people, which is equally evil. And so these cuts, the across-the-board cuts are currently on hold, but every day we see contracts being canceled. And we have contracts focused on millions of dollars on Alzheimer's research, contracts studying suicide prevention, contracts studying things as esoteric as musculoskeletal health in rural communities, and these are all either delayed or cut or at serious risk of being cut. So a large number of my coworkers at the University of Pittsburgh are at risk of losing their jobs, and every time one of these contracts is canceled, a lab closes and a number of people lose their jobs. Once a lab closes, you can't just snap your fingers and restart that work. So even if the money comes in eventually, we really lose a lot. And then in addition to people who work directly in research at the University of Pittsburgh, we have a large number of other employment categories. And so when these cuts go through, and as these cuts go through, we're already seeing hiring freezes, major spending cuts. As I said, we're seeing labs close and people lose their jobs. But this also means that undergraduate students who come to Pitt to get their degree and improve their lives, they're going to be paying higher tuition to cover some of these gaps that are made up. They're going to have fewer classes and classes with more students in them, fewer programs and resources, fewer teachers and teachers who are more overwhelmed and overworked and can't give them as much attention. Pennsylvania taxpayers are going to be on the hook to make up some of these gaps, even though these projects are federal contracts that the federal government has contracted with us to do. And everybody in Western Pennsylvania has some connection to the University of Pittsburgh, which is one of the largest employers in the region. So as this progresses, we're going to see a domino effect, and the economy of the whole region, I think, is at risk. So it's a really scary time. Every day we're seeing more and more cuts go through. And the one thing I'll say on an optimistic note is that we ratified our first contract 11 months ago, and as bad as things are, if we were not members of the United Steelworkers, they would be so much worse. We've been working with our district, with Director Bernie Hall, with our staff rep Matt Nader, with Assistant to the Director Todd Clary, with Rapid Response and Legislative Affairs and Strategic Campaigns, and having the Steelworkers behind us, and also just having a structure for the workers to have a voice. We've been talking directly to our representatives, to our U.S. senators, holding rallies. You know, even just a year ago, we wouldn't have had any of these structures to be able to actually like bring our 12,000 voices together and speak with one voice and represent ourselves to the government. Fighting the federal government is a big lift, right? But we at least are able to engage in that fight at all because we're steelworkers.
Thank you all so much for sharing your stories, particularly the pieces of them that are painful. Just to ask some questions about what you've said. Sue, your members, you've had many laid off. Did they see the layoffs coming? How were they notified? What did this look like for them?
Well, our workers knew that there was likely to be changes that would happen, but they absolutely had no idea and could not ever anticipate how disorganized, illegal, and cruel that these changes were going to take place. The retirement or limited, targeted buyouts to reduce the federal workforce, but they did not anticipate that OPM would develop a boilerplate termination letter. In the termination letter, it accused every one of those probationary employees of poor performance in a way to justify firing them. So they were caught off guard totally.
Totally caught off guard. Cameron and Shanice, you are both former federal employees. Can you share anything about your status, your personal experience, and how this has happened to you?
Sure. I'll be honest, I think I've been fired, let go, and then rehired more times than I can count. Seriously, it was a pretty normal Sunday afternoon when I got a reduction in force notice. It's like a downsizing, right? They said, hey, we're going to downsize the agency, and as a result, you know, you're going to have about 60 days, and then you're toast. I said, okay, you know, that sucks, but I got 60 days to figure it out. Next Monday, very next day, less than 24 hours later, I get a termination letter. It says, hey, you're a probationary employee. You're being terminated, quote, in the best interest of the United States government. Not gonna lie, that stung a lot. I was ready to work for the federal government for the rest of my life. I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer. I want to serve my country. So that really was a twist of the knife. But then all of this got tied up in the courts. And I am not a lawyer by any means, but I am forced to try to decode and figure out what the heck is going on, because as a result of those lawsuits, I was then rehired with the agency. None of my devices work. I can't actually work, but I'm rehired, or at least they tell me. And then I was placed back on administrative leave. And it's really just this kind of farcical event that I think really shows that, you know, Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency have no idea what they're doing, you know? You think it's efficient for me to sit at home all day and just, you know, not do any work, right? There was an earthquake in Myanmar, you know, and people died because we can't get them supplies and life-saving aid. You know, we can't continue our development work because Elon Musk has cut the entire thing. It's incredibly inefficient. They've taken a working system and they are smashing it to pieces. Has that been your experience?
Yes, I yesterday received an email saying that I was reinstated because of the court ruling the other day, but I'm on administrative leave. So the waste is I'm getting paid by the taxpayers to sit home and do nothing because I don't have access to my system. My health care, it was terminated. I missed doctor's appointments I had to cancel. My daughter had to find other insurance, and then now they say, okay, we're gonna reinstate you with no break in your health insurance. It's really, it's psychological warfare, it's emotionally distressful, and it's just not right.
Right, it's not right. Federal workers are certainly being harmed, but the loss of federal workers, less staff, cut budgets, instability, harms the public too. Stephen, can you talk a little bit about how your members' job loss impacts the public?
Yeah, absolutely. Having a background in wildland fire, it's a fire year now. A lot of the folks that were terminated, we lost 5,000 federal workers across the country overnight, and these folks on a daily basis could be fighting a fire. And now you just lost firefighters that help respond to medical incidents, wildfires, disaster response such as hurricanes or tornadoes. I mean, they sent our folks to the Space Shuttle recovery. We were some of the first responders that were up in the air after 9/11. This is a huge machine that they're stopping, and ultimately the American taxpayer, the American public is going to hurt. People are going to die. Communities will continue to burn if we can't support these kind of staffs. And having, I mean, these folks make like $15 an hour. What kind of bureaucracy is that? We're cutting their feet off. This is not what people wanted when they voted for that administration. And these folks are blue collar, They're just like every one of you in this room right now, right? They're all trying to put food on the table every single day, and now they're getting swept away. And ultimately, like I said, forests are gonna burn, communities are gonna burn, people are gonna die, and we have to respond. And that's where all of you come in.
Thank you. And Tyler, you spoke a little bit about this, but how is the public harmed by the cuts impacting our members at Pitt?
Yeah, I think biomedical research is incredible. The University of Pittsburgh is where Jonas Salk developed the polio vaccine. It's where heart transplants were first developed. And right now, we talk sometimes about a war against cancer. I don't think what we're hearing in the news really captures this. The federal government right now has switched sides in the war against cancer. They are objectively pro-cancer. And this is personal for me. 2 years ago, my father died of a brain tumor called glioblastoma. My dad was a member of the California Teachers Association and a union steward. Glioblastoma is one of the deadliest cancers that there is. My dad, when he received his diagnosis, the doctors told him he had a year. Almost exactly 12 months later, he died. Right now, there are, for the first time ever, really promising treatments being developed that use the mRNA technology that we first started to see with the COVID vaccine. There are also treatments for some of the other worst cancers, like pancreatic cancer, which again has just incredibly high mortality rates that are being developed through the use of mRNA technologies. And the term mRNA is on that list of words that means that if you have a contract that has the phrase mRNA, that contract's going to get cut. So the federal government, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy, these people are actively working. They are choosing for families like mine to not have treatments that can save their loved ones. They are choosing to shut down that research and to deny families like mine the ability to have more years with their loved ones. And they're choosing it because they're in the grip of a deranged conspiracy theory about vaccines, right? They think that there are like alien radars being put in our bodies by these mRNA vaccines. And I would say if I could have a couple more years with my dad, I would gladly accept an alien radar being injected into his body. I think we really don't understand just how evil these decisions are. It's unspeakable. And in every other area, we have a $60 million project on Alzheimer's research. Alzheimer's devastates families, and the federal government is cutting research, trying to study one of the hardest to treat illnesses in the world. And again, it's just I think we as the public do not understand how devastating the cuts to the federal agencies to support this work and the cuts in universities that are doing this work are going to be on all of our futures and all of our ability to access treatment for these devastating illnesses.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about this most recent executive order that President Trump signed, eliminating collective bargaining for about 1 million federal workers for so-called national security reasons. Stephen, your union represents a lot of those workers. What's happening?
Yeah, that's exactly right. NIFI represents the VA, Department of Defense, Bureau of Land Management, GSA, and several other ones that were affected in the executive order. And essentially, the Trump administration blanket, labeled everybody national security. Our Veterans Affairs doctors, national security, right? Blanketly took away their contracts, right? So imagine all of you in this room right now that have a contract nationally or locally being stripped away of all your rights that this union has always fought for and defended people for. Imagine those getting taken away, no dues, your office is kicked out. Within federal workers, we can't strike. The last time federal workers went on strike was during PATCO, and they all got fired. 11,000 air traffic controllers were fired on this. This is an attack on millions of people right now. This is a dire thing that the public needs to understand, and stripping people's collective bargaining rights. I mean, we have Bureau of Land Management that's in the middle of nowhere land, for the most part, so to speak. And these folks are archaeologists, or they're hydrologists or firefighters, to name a few. And DOD, we have civilian personnel that oversee contracts to make sure that there's checks and balances in there, to ensure that there's no fraud or waste that they're trying to do. And these folks just got stripped away of all of their collective bargaining rights. So if they're coming after probably federal workers, right? They're coming after federal workers, it's going to start trickling outside into the private sector. And this is where all in of solidarity is going to come through with each other. So yeah, it's terrible. It's egregious, and it's a huge attack on the American worker across the board.
Everything that we've heard from you all today is shameful, it's sad, it's hard. We are the labor movement, though. We fight back. So, Cameron, what are you and your members doing to fight back?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'm lucky enough, or cursed, as you might see it, to live, within the Beltway. So with the termination of all of these employees, what we have been doing is every Tuesday and Thursday we go to the Senate building and we organize, and then we go bug the heck out of these senators. Seriously, just earlier before I came, yeah, right, because listen, they are not our bosses, we are their bosses,
That's right?
We elected them, and they have to listen to us. So what we do is we go to their offices and we sit in until they listen to us, and we tell our stories. And we tell them, hey, did you know that USAID is less than 1% of the federal budget? Do you know that your district actually bought over $1 billion in goods from USAID? And we are fighting back and telling them and letting them know what is happening. Because quite frankly, Congress does not even know what DOGE is doing to them, to the federal government. Seriously, yeah, this is insane. DOGE is cutting so quickly and so fast that Congress is not keeping up with it. They don't know what's going on, and quite frankly, DOGE is committing so much fraud. Every penny at USAID was accounted for, because I know if I sign a contract and it's wrong, I go to jail, right? It's as simple as that. It's called fraud, and the federal government will throw me in jail. DOGE took a working financial system that was the best in the federal government, broke it, and then started building their own that was so dysfunctional. They were having mispayments, they were paying the wrong people, they were committing fraud. And we are telling those stories to Congress so that Congress can wake up, get its act together, and start fighting this.
That's right.
Tyler, do you want to say a little bit about what our union has been doing for our members at Pitt?
Yeah, It's hard, you guys. Fighting the federal government's hard. You know, when this stuff started to come through, you know, we immediately reached out to the district and started getting the support. We have, we've joined in on some big rallies. There was a big Stand Up for Science rally several weeks ago. Next week on April 17th, actually, if anyone's going to be in Western Pennsylvania, at noon in Shinley Plaza in Pittsburgh, we're going to have there's a national rally to support higher education. With the district, we held a roundtable with our local representatives that got a lot of news attention and I think really helped people in the community understand you know, what was coming down the pike and how these cuts to Pitt were not just going to affect, you know, people wearing lab coats with glasses in these labs, but, you know, affect the whole community. We traveled to DC and had meetings with several of our senators, which I do think I agree. They're scared, right? Like they know that this is wrong, but they're also terrified, and so they really need to feel the squeeze from the pressure because they're getting a lot of pressure from the administration side, and they need to feel the pressure from the workers. And so we're doing what we can to put that pressure on, but we're also doing what we can to use our contract to protect our workers, right? And so you know, when these grants are cut, that doesn't necessarily mean that a person is immediately laid off, right? Like we need to go through and actually determine, you know, what exactly their position is and like how exactly they're funded, and some people are kind of partly on, you know, hard money from the university and part money on soft money from these grants. So we're also working really hard to, you know, throw sand in the gears, right, and make it as hard as possible for these cuts to go through in every way we can.
Thank you. You know, we've talked about this all week. An injury to one is an injury to all. We're all in on solidarity this week, reinvigorating our fight. How can we join yours?
I think sharing our story, letting your family, your friends know what we've gone through, what we're going through, because a lot of people don't know. So letting people know, letting your congressional members, your senators know, download the 5 Calls app. It's an app that will direct you right to your senators, your congressmen. You can let them know. You don't have to, like I said, it doesn't matter what your political views are. If you think it's wrong, call them and let them know, don't do it. We are not going to stand for it. And as for me, I look at this as being a blessing in disguise because me being fired has fired my soul to go run for office. So I'm going to go file next week. Woo! Yeah, I have to be the change that I want to see. Like Senator Booker said, if it is to be, it begins with me. So I'm going to do it, and we can all do it.
Are we up for the fight, Steelworkers? Please, please join me in thanking this group of exceptional people, of brave people who came to tell their story.